Hi. I've talked at length and will continue to do so about what a lonely place it is to have an eating disorder and how that isolation and almost complete removal from society that can creep into our lives where you are as an individual going through an eating disorder. But I think what often gets forgotten and is so important to talk about is how that loneliness and isolation can affect the caregivers, by which I mean what we in Wednesday's Child call the cheerleaders or supporters. It's the parents, it's the spouses, it's the friends, it's the partners. It's those that are there at the sidelines wishing desperately to help that person get well and not being quite sure how to do it. For them, in that dark place when they're desperately trying to be a louder voice than the voice of the eating disorder, it can become really lonely. And I think it's imperative that we have that as a conversation, and it's certainly why we at Wednesday's Child are delivering courses and one-to-one support for this particular group of people, these parents, these spouses, these partners, these people that are petrified of what might happen to the person they love if this eating disorder is ignored or worsens. So, two ways of looking at this, and I think it's really sort of well worth us discussing this from a child perspective and from adult sufferer perspective. So, where children are concerned, there's an awful weight on parents' shoulders around that supportive part that they play, in part because the child is no doubt living under their roof. So just imagine for a moment, imagine being that parent who takes the child to a GP surgery or a specialist and says, my child clearly is suffering from an eating disorder. I'm very concerned. What can I do? And as we know, the current situation is such that in many cases, not through any lack of trying, GP practices in particular are so short of opportunities to be able to find appropriate care support in a level of immediacy for a young person. What I would say as a caveat to that is you will find statistically that those who are under sort of children and young people care, they will receive referrals much, much quicker than adults generally. So everybody understands the need for early intervention, and all the possible means will come into play to find beds where beds are needed or support therapies where they are needed. But still, we have a problem whereby hospitals, mental health hospitals, and specifically dedicated units for eating disorders are in short supply. And as we know, all the mental health trusts are struggling in terms of resource. So we've seen closures in recent years. We've also seen a lack of staffing. And just to add to that, eating disorders are something which we can't say that in 4 weeks' time this person in bed A will be out, will be discharged, will be cured, will be better, will be ready to be back in the community. So we can't even give a sort of time scale, not precisely, about when that next bed will become available. So as you can see, it's a really complicated picture where GPs and other sort of referral units are doing the best they can do to find care pathways for children and young people, but it will still be relatively restricted and time-based around circumstance. So where that is the case, imagine being that parent who has to go home and say, I'm on a watch and wait. I've got to do all I can to keep my child well, healthy, robust, resilient, all of those things, while I put my head on the pillow at night and worry constantly about what sources of social media might that child be engaging in. What is their day-to-day life at school going to be like? Should I pull them out of education? Is that the right thing to do as a parent? Should I force them to be at home with me? Should I become passive-aggressive about the eating disorder? Should I be more dogmatic? Should I force-feed them? Should I refuse to allow them privileges? How should I handle this? And who should I talk to? Who is my network of support? Because however much we don't want mental health to be something of taboo and stigma, I know myself that, I speak to so many families and so many parents who say, to be truthful, I really struggled to go and tell, my best friends or my family that, my beloved daughter had an eating disorder and that I was battling with it and that it was a problem within the family. Well, I can't think of many illnesses and diseases where a parent would feel that they couldn't feel able to outwardly discuss that with a friendship group, but for some reason eating disorders still do drive that. And maybe it's because we fear judgment. Maybe it's because some parents do fear that there will be people out there who'll say, well, can't you just force her to eat? Can't you just tell her to have more mashed potato? Can't you tell her to sit at the table until it's finished? And as we all know with eating disorders, it doesn't work like that. But equally, we can't change overnight the understanding of other people. So that makes it so much harder to get compassion and support. So that's just, from a child's point of view, and even before they are then obviously you found a bed if that's necessary, or found therapy. You've then got that long journey through which you're trying to support them and hope that the selected therapist has been appropriate, or the inpatient care is doing the best it can be. And here's a thought. We talk about empty nesters when elder sort of teenagers go off to university. But what about if you're that parent and you have just dropped a child in an inpatient care unit because they've got to be in residential for their eating disorder for months, possibly for maybe 6 months on end? It might prove longer. Imagine being a parent one morning and then you take that journey to drop that child at an eating disorders unit, and you come home to that house that no longer has your beloved child in it. Yes, you know your child's in a place of safety,